The evildoers who planned this tragedy must have believed that most folks didn't pay close attention during science class. Thanks to the internet, we can easily refresh our memories with a high school tutorial. In this example, the upward velocity and the outward velocity are equal, creating a 45-degree angle for the cannonball arc. The y component represents up and down, and the x-axis represents left and right. At the start, they are equal. At the top of the arc, the y value is 0. As the cannonball falls to the original level of the cannon, its speed increases to its original value of 60 meters per second. Yet the x value remains the same throughout the flight of the cannonball. Let's compare this example to the North Tower debris. In a natural collapse, debris should fall close to the side of the building. However, in the case of the North Tower, we see upward explosions of dust and smoke in a symmetrical pattern. From within the falling debris, we can see an explosive puff of cloud rising as another section is ejected in an arc roughly 600 feet or 2 football fields away from the tower. The dust clouds following the ejected debris are consistent with an explosive event, whereas large chunks of concrete would normally result from a simple collapse. This would indicate that a powerful explosion must have ejected this heavy steel debris with equal upward and outward force to create this shape of projectile motion. Let's take a closer look at the North Tower implosion. At the first detonation level, a demolition squib is visible, indicating advanced sequencing of explosions is occurring inside the tower. From a closer angle, we can more clearly see the advanced demolition squibs ejecting concrete dust at high speed in a symmetrical pattern. We also notice the detonations progressing down the right side of the building at the same speed as the free-fall debris. On the left side, we see vaporized heavy steel beams leaving a trail behind as they fall. This clear evidence of controlled demolition far below the collapse level proves without a doubt that the official story of a pancake collapse is a complete fraud designed to fool the public. As we watch the North Tower implosion once again, we notice demolition squibs ejected from 2 floors simultaneously on the right side of the tower. Some skeptics have suggested that air pressure down elevator shafts could be responsible for this. However, it is a typical feature of controlled demolitions, and the equal spacing between levels of ejected dust and the central positioning rule out any random element of chance. As the implosion progresses, the second level of demolition squibs come into view. These are clearly visible from other camera angles using forward and reverse playback. As heavy steel beams are ejected from the first detonation level marked in yellow, debris from the start of the collapse can be seen falling close to the side of the tower. It appears that the non-horizontal arc of the projectile motion matches a 45-degree upward ejection angle. FEMA's Building Performance Study provides a map with scale that we can use to measure the distance the North Tower debris was ejected into the roof of the Winter Garden. Since we can clearly see the base of the near side of the tower, we will measure across the center of the tower and then subtract the width of the tower, 207 feet, to find the projectile distance to be roughly 600 feet. This photo shows the damage to nearby buildings from North Tower debris. Here we can see how the large outer steel sections are sticking out of the American Express building like arrows out of a target. Large sections of the North Tower's outer steel framework weigh hundreds of tons joined together. Where did the huge amount of energy come from to eject them roughly 600 feet through the air into the rooftop of the Winter Garden? Perhaps the clearest evidence of controlled demolition was published as early as May 2002 in the Federal Emergency Management Agency's preliminary report and has been in plain sight all this time. If we look at this chart listing the impact and collapse seismic statistics, we find several illogical results that have apparently been overlooked by the Blue Ribbon team of experts who compiled the report. The first is the duration of the collapse for the North and South Towers. We notice that the length of the seismic signal for the North Tower was actually shorter than the South Tower, even though the North Tower collapse began 15 floors higher than the South. How could this be possible? 95 floors collapse in 8 seconds, and 80 floors collapse in 10 seconds. FEMA, NIST, and the 9/11 Commission unanimously decided not to mention this illogical anomaly in their reports. The North Tower created an 8-second signal, far too short to represent the collapse of debris. Perhaps the truth is that the seismic readings have nothing to do with the collapse, but represent the powerful explosions required to break the building foundation away from the bedrock it was anchored to. Next, we see that the magnitude of the North and South Towers is 2.1 and 2.3 respectively. Since the magnitude is a logarithmic scale, this indicates a very large difference in the energy of the falling towers. A single-digit increase in the Richter scale magnitude represents a logarithmic increase of a factor of 10 and a seismic energy increase of roughly 30 times. For example, 1.0 would require 30 pounds of TNT, 2.0 would require 1 ton of TNT, and 3.0 would require 29 tons of TNT to produce the necessary seismic energy. In the case of the North and South Towers, a Richter scale magnitude measurement of 2.1 for the South Tower collapse would represent the seismic energy of 1.4 tons of TNT detonated. For the North Tower, the magnitude was 2.3, equivalent to 2.7 tons of TNT detonated. Since the magnitude is determined from the peak amplitude of the seismic wave, this indicates that the explosive power recorded during the North Tower collapse was roughly double that of the South Tower.